Right. So there we go.
Hey, Melissa. Hey, everybody else. Good seeing you guys tonight. Pulled up at 6:15 with you. Like, hey. We're always fit in right last minute. Anyways, I'm really glad you guys are attending. There's so much to having a successful studio tour, and every little bit what Franklin did last week will help. What you'll learn next week, I'll probably add other things besides staging tonight. This one of the things I think that's great about the studio tour. It gives us an opportunity to clean our studio. But before you do that, I do recommend getting some pictures of it before and posting that. I think people like seeing what our workplace is like. I did my intro video in my messy studio and kind of gave a once around. That's who we are. That's the real studio tour.
People love to see the palettes and the paint.
They do want to see it, and I don't recommend it for the tour, but I do think it's important to have works in progress up and on display that you can talk about to your visitors. I think that's really important. They want to know more about the process. So if you have stages that you can show them, beginning, next step, and next step. And I know Amelia, she's got lots of layers in her work, and to see that process is very interesting to them. They may not want to do it, but they want to know how you do it. So make sure you're taking pictures of your studio. And then when you're starting to set up your display, take a look around. We do have some older people. We have people that come with wheelchairs or walkers, and make sure that things are easy to get around. It is somewhat of a liability to invite these people into our house, so make sure that there's room for people to move around. It's probably a good idea to have a helper at the studio tour. Just somebody that can, sometimes you get 4, 5, 6 people in at once. You can't be talking to everybody. So if you have somebody that's a friend or a relative that can just make some introductions, that knows a little bit about your artwork and can help fill some of that space. Amelia, did you have somebody helping you at your home tour?
Yeah, I had, when we did the evening preview party, I had 2 people helping me. Just to kind of watch food and also because we had it set up for people to come in the basement to see the studio, plus we had an area outside in the backyard and our main floor. So like there was no way I was gonna be able to.
And you had some stuff in this basement too, did you not?
Yeah. So I utilized my studio space. I kind of set it up the way I normally would.
Right.
Be working and kind of showed people like here's where I do my collage stuff. Here's where I actually paint. And then like I put a whole bunch of work on display in our living area in the basement too, so that people could look at that. And then I also on the TV screen I had a looping video that showed it was just like a time lapse of my process because like I knew I wasn't going to be able to demo the whole time. There's no way you can do that. And I got that idea I think maybe a year or 2 ago for the studio tour because I'm normally not in my studio. And I found that people really, really appreciated that. So then I just,
Another thing when you're setting up, practice your transactions. So if you have a square or something like that, I highly recommend practicing with your square before getting it all set up so you're not fumbling around when you have that first sale. It can be kind of frustrating. Have a receipt book too so you can write those things down. So if you do have a snafu, that you can have it written down to give somebody a receipt. So these are little things that you don't think about always when you're setting up, but it's really important to just have that confidence. And if you do it ahead of time, then you'll kind of feel better about it. You'll probably hang in other areas of your house, just like Amelia did. When you're setting up, try to have a continuity about your work. Even if you paint different things or if you do different art, try to put like things around like things. So so it does not look like a garage sale. It's really important to have a pleasing display, similarly framed. Your work has a real continuity to it just by the way you paint and with your layers. So I think that's really, really important that you have a nice, clean continuity to your work. It's okay to have things in bins too. I do recommend clear bagging things. They just look nicer. But I've gone to some studios where the painter is just very prolific, and she just had it stacked one on top of the other. They were oil paintings. I think that's okay too, as long as it's plainly marked, or if you have a set price for certain sizes or a certain stack. I think that's really important, so people aren't getting your attention. How much is this? How much is that?
Right.
So the most you can do ahead of time to prevent all those little questions, the better. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
So I've never been a participant, nor have I been a person that has visited tour before. So those that are attending are not only wanting to see the space and the work. Is there, what's the difference between that and an art show?
It's got a little, it's a peek into the artist's workspace.
More personal.
Yeah, so, and people really do like to meet the artist, but they want to see the process, they want to see the work area. There's a mystery to it, and they like learning about that. So we've always called it a Loveland Art Studio tour and sale, because it's not just like a home tour where they're just coming and looking. We're hoping this is a good event for you to build some clientele, have some sales. And it's a great way to have works that maybe you wouldn't put in galleries. Maybe they're unframed, or they're sketches, or they're just thought processes. I mean, just basically your ideas. There's just some preliminary sketching and things that some people are thrilled to get that, I've bought a lot of things unframed. And so I find people are thrilled to get an original piece of artwork, but they also like to see the studio too. Like I said, it takes the mystery out of it. That's why even if you clean your studio, have pictures of it. This is what it looks like before.
Normally.
And that's a good conversation starter with people.
I'm going to be at artwork, so I'll just be bringing things in. So do I set it up like the studio?
So you're just kind of a guest there?
Yes.
Okay, so I recommend, do you paint? Or
Yes.
Okay, so I would recommend setting up an easel with a work in progress, and maybe have your palette there. But also you can just set up whatever display area that you have. But if you, since you are going to be at your home studio, have a picture of your home studio there. Maybe some artists are just not.
I don't really
accessible.
have one. I have a bedroom.
Well, that's your studio though. And that's, some people think, oh, you have to have a studio to be an artist. Some people, it's a coffee table,
The kitchen table.
Yeah.
So I know artists that have worked for years in their bathroom. I mean, if you want to do artwork, you will find a way to do it.
Right.
And people appreciate that, because if they ever wanted to get into art,
They don't know that they don't have to
They
have.
don't have to
You
have
know
forms.
it's normal.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if
that's a
it's in
good
your
point.
bedroom, all the better, just shows. Like, I tried to tell my husband one year, I'm like, just think if you had to clean off your desk every day so we could have dinner.
Yeah.
And so he was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I get it. And at the time I was making jewelry, but I made it at the kitchen table, and that's where we had dinner. But again, it takes some mystery out of it, and they just love to hear the story behind your work. Also, tell positive stories about your work, the process. They like to hear the process and what inspired you. So make it positive, because I had one piece last week. The lady asked me, she's like, how much is this? And I told her the price, and I saw her start to turn to put it back, and I said, the title was, It's Good to Be a Bear. And I said, it is good to be a bear, because you get to eat all you want, you can nap anytime, and nobody bugs you because you're fat. And she goes, yeah, I'll take it. And I told the gal on duty, and I said, now, when people come to her house, she's going to tell them that story. that's gonna be her takeaway on, you're like, oh, this is a title of this and this is why.
Mhm.
So, just interact in a fun way with your guests and ask them for addresses and stuff. Here's the way I do it at the gallery. I never say, can I put you on my mailing list? I say, would you like to be on our invitation list? We do
Good
shows.
verbiage.
We do 6 shows a year. I'm not pesky. We'll send you a postcard invitation and, we're not gonna fill, right now, I think people get way more junk emails than they do junk mail. And the word invitation, I almost never have anybody turn me down for that. And sometimes I send thank you notes pretty frequently for people spending money. But sometimes if it just seemed like a really friendly connection, I'll just send them notes and it was so nice to meet you. Thanks so much for coming by my studio. Those written notes mean a world to people. And get a note card with your image on it and your website on the back. It's a seed that you're planting.
Yeah, one thing I would say, like for Candace, that I'm in the same situation where I'm not actually in my studio. And so that's always been a struggle for me. Like, how do I help people feel like they're experiencing my studio?
Right.
Yeah, without actually being there, because I don't really want to uproot my family for 2 weekends in a row. We haven't agreed to that yet.
I think Billie touched on that quite a bit, is show them stages of your work. I think that's really important, is maybe you have a drawing and then you have, if you're blocking out or, whatever you do, have those there. People love to see the process.
Yeah.
They have no idea what it takes. Plus, you're showing them how much it takes to do this stuff.
Right.
It gives it a, validity, it makes it valuable.
Right, when people ask how many hours did that take, and then their
Right.
jaw drops and goes, oh,
Right.
I see why you're asking what you're asking, or gosh, that's only $10 an hour.
Right.
Ah!
Right. You're right.
Yeah, I've been in a place where it's not my studio for the past couple of years, so I always am painting when I'm there.
Demoing.
So I demo, and then I also have a whole other part of my business, and my painting is where I include kids. So I have like little kid crafts, maybe taking off of one of the paintings that I've done. That way and I set that up like with the actual painting there, and then I give them a little description or different things that they can do. So I've got, normally I'm painting, I'm demoing, I've got a little kids area, and then I have.
I hope you have a helper.
Yeah,
I don't, actually, I know.
I'll
I'll
have one started,
not a bad
I'll
idea.
have one started, but generally I don't get to work on it unless we just have a lull.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because we're just usually way too busy for that. And as far as setting up your display, Jill, I watch her when she sets up a show at a Lincoln Gallery. She kind of groups things together.
Me.
Oh, there all the time. She groups things that look good together. So, if you've got a body work that looks really good over there, because I paint lots of different things, but they don't all look good together. So I make a group of maybe still lifes over here, and here's some of my funny animals over here, and here's some of my landscapes over here. So kind of make little areas, again, going back to the continuity of the work. So, plus, if they're really interested in still lifes, you'll kind of keep them in that area too.
And it also, they do buy them in groupings. If you already have done the work for them and set them up where they look good together, I've had them come in and go, okay, I'll take that, that, and that. And I'm like, okay. And it's just because we did the work for them. A lot of people can't put them together.
Well, and if you got them all, mixed up, it really clutters your mind. It's just harder to see the
Needs to
work.
be pleasing.
And then some of the artists that do jewelry or pottery, I've had the jewelry artists bring the rocks or the stones that they use and some of the pieces of the work. So again, this is what it looks like when I start. These are the pieces I look, and they'll bring even some of the rocks that they can give to kids. something that they can hand out. And it's always good to have a little something that you can hand out. I have these little mini prints that I give people, and especially the little kids there. It's kind of, parents love it when you give their kids stuff.
So you separate them, gifts.
Yeah, you can just have some things on hand. You can do it right there where you're checking out, so that you have them behind wherever your checkout, area is. And sometimes I'll have them for sale, but if a little kid's there, I'm like, these are things that I'm discounting anyway. So if a little kid likes a little funny bird, like, well, this one's for you. Thank you so much for coming. And just, they're excited. They love getting something like that.
Are there lots of kids that do come?
There's not lots, but there is an occasional one. And it's so funny because you can tell the kids that are really interested.
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody know, are we doing Scarecrow that weekend or something like that?
They're putting the scarecrows up the second week on the 15th, from what I understand.
Of October or
Yeah,
September?
October.
So the second,
Okay, so the second weekend, there'll be a lot of kids.
which means
yeah,
if you have an opportunity or a chance to like have some kids stuff, that's gonna help parents stay longer.
So last
There's
year,
some kind
I
of
did
a
and
scarecrow
I actually did my craft.
display that artists
That's a
have
good
put
idea.
together and they put them around town.
So it's
In
art
downtown.
show.
It's something that they hire artists to do and they display
Just
around
that city
downtown.
thing.
Oh, I don't
Yeah.
know. How
Yeah.
to get information?
I mean, very few.
This,
Then just
Kat,
like
do you know how to,
when they-
is it LDP that has that,
Yes, I think it
the
is.
Loveland Downtown Partnership?
Yeah, like a lot of times our community.
And then I can give you, the lady's name, maybe
No.
contact.
Oh, it's,
But you can,
person.
Loveland Downtown
Like,
Partnership and stuff.
Kid
Or
their
their
MO, yeah, their MO is,
We can make sure you get the link if you leave your email with one of us.
Yeah, I know. And you mentioned the square, what's that?
A credit card processor that you can use with your phone or tablet.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's for a purchase.
Or when people are buying stuff, those are the ones that you.
Are you in the tour?
No, I'm first time coming here.
Oh, okay, great,
What's
well,
your name?
welcome.
Jessie.
Jesse,
to meet
nice
you,
to meet
Yeah,
you.
nice to meet you.
So, and I want to talk a little bit about beyond the staging, the invitation to get people to the tour. Now, I just ordered 1,000 postcards. Sounds like a lot, but I put some in my purse and I invite ladies at the bank, ladies checking me out. If I go to the vet, if I'm going to my dentist, if I'm going to my hairdresser, those people have art where they live. They buy gifts for people. You should also be mailing these to people that you do business with on a regular basis. Your, investment banker and anybody that you do business with, they have artwork on their wall. The postcards that I bought was $46.
So it's not your artwork on the postcard, it's just regular postcard.
It is actually my artwork on the postcard, yeah.
that's
So they're designed, have studio tour information, my address, some information about the tour website. And I quite often, after I put my labels on from all those invitation lists that I've gotten from people, then I sometimes put a smiley face or something like that.
Some handwritten.
Something that I'm like, hope to see you, look forward to seeing you. Sometimes it's just a smiley face, and I can do that while I'm watching TV. And so it's really important. There's so many ways to invite passively, Facebook,
Your neighbors.
Instagram. Yeah, and especially if you're having it at your house.
oh my gosh, if they can walk there,
Yeah,
they'll come.
yeah,
And you can
Like
go
a
around,
lot
I've
of
taken
together.
my postcards and just say, hey, I'm doing the studio tour and give them the invitation but that is so important to have it tangible because again, things on Facebook kind of scroll up, emails get piled on. Not that I don't do those things too, I do, but I think it's super important for a personal invitation. They're coming to see you. And I use Scott Print, but some people use Vistaprint, and they're pretty user-friendly. Postcard stamps are 35 cents, so it's a pretty small investment. I think the smallest you can order is $100.
and if you don't have a mailing list, this is a great year to make your mailing list. So these people are coming to your studio see you get their name, get their address.
Get their invitation, get your invitation list ready.
Yep.
And one of the things that's so powerful about having an actual mailing list versus just emails or just social media contacts is you have a little bit more control over that. You know, when you just have a social media contact, you're at the mercy of that platform. So if they decide they want you to pay to access all of your contacts and they're only going to show 1% of your contacts, your information, your invite, you're at their whim. But if you have a mailing list, an actual invitation list like Billie's talking about, you know it's going to get to their mailbox. Unless, of course, the post office loses it and you can't really do anything about that. But you've got a much higher success rate and a much higher chance of connecting with that person in a little bit more of an intimate way as opposed to just an email or a social media post.
And Billie said also a better chance of them actually looking at it,
Yeah.
because it's in their hands.
Yeah.
What I find is people, they feel special because
Yep.
you took the time to
Yes.
invite
Yep.
them. I've had people come in with a postcard, they're like, invitation, they feel special. And because all those other things scroll on up and the emails go away, if they're really interested, they'll either put it on their fridge or use it as a bookmark, they'll hang on to it. It's tangible. And use one of your, like, you can use social media for your test market. If you use an image and you get a lot of people that like that image, use that image. Or use one that you think is fantastic, but nobody's really responding to it. So that's my recommendation about inviting people. Veterinarian.
So in your experience while you're doing this postcard and invitation, how many people come to your studio?
As far as percentage wise, I probably don't have a number percentage wise that they come. A lot of times when I'm doing my email invitation, I'll do it the day before. Just a reminder. I'll do that during night on the town. I'll get up in the morning. Just a reminder. Tonight is, because if they don't have any plans, and then I've had people say, I'm so glad you do that, because sometimes we're not doing anything. We're like, hey, yeah, let's do it. So I still do those kind of things, but sometimes I do those last minute. And, it's 2 weekends, so they can't come the first weekend. They can always come the second weekend.
Yeah, so you got how many people?
And then they also feel like even you're making them remember you, because my gallery is open all the time. So the studio tour, what's make it special at my studio, because it's a gallery and we are open all the time, is we have artists do demos, and there's lots of us there. So several people can be doing a demo, and then we can have a section of sale work and things like that. So that's where it's different for us, is that we're doing things that we can't do under normal business hours.
Billie, can you talk a little bit about, like, when you had mentioned about staging, as far as grouping works together. I think one of the things that artists a lot of time don't know what is best is how much work should actually go on the walls. Like, is there a line where it's like, that's too much, or should they put up everything they have? Can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it overwhelms the senses if you put too many things up. And a lot of us do prints. So if you have 5 or 6 of the same print, certainly don't put all of them out, put one out. And as it sells, replace it. But I think you can overwhelm the senses of people. They've already going to have a lot to choose from all the studios, so make yours clean and easy to look at. There's a place in Estes, one of my favorite stores. Never buy anything. There's too much to choose from, and I don't choose. I just go and admire and leave because there's just too much to choose from. So don't overwhelm. Put your strongest work out there, and then have a section of sale work. It's okay to put a bin up, stack a bin where they can stack it and go through it. One on top of the other.
One of the things that I've done in the past is just, to kind of mix it up and everything. I'll do a certain display of work the first week and then the first weekend, and then if I have inventory that I'm like, oh, I really wish I could have had room to show that, but I didn't want to overwhelm the customer. That's a great way to just go ahead and put that work up instead.
That's really smart.
Make it fresh the second weekend.
Yeah, make it fresh, but then also tell the people, tell people like, oh, by the way, next weekend, I'm gonna have different work up. Like, if you let them know that, you'll get some, repeat people coming in.
Another thing that goes really good with that is give them something to remember you, because there's a lot of people on the tour. So most of them will come around and shop the first weekend. They gotta check everybody out. And the second weekend is when they go back and buy. It's not everybody, but we see that in the numbers.
do, yeah.
So if they come in to see you, you should be handing them a postcard of your work when they leave the door, to make sure they come back the next weekend. So they remember, or otherwise they could go, where was that lady? I forgot, so give them something.
Yeah.
Hand them something.
Yeah, and that is a really good point, because we don't have the catalog this year for them to make any kind of marking on. So giving them something that they can use, I think is a really good idea.
Yep, hand them a postcard that you've printed. If you don't want to mail them all, hand them that.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea to change it out and freshen it up, because if you think you're not getting attention on the body of work that's you've put on display, I'm like, change it.
Yeah. We do that on art shows too. If you're doing an art show and there's 200 vendors in that show, and someone comes in your booth and they're really talkative and interested, you better give them something telling them where you're at when they want to come back around, because otherwise they can't find you. So it's really important to hand them something.
Another thing that I think is important and can be overlooked is have a way to wrap purchases.
Yes, I had that on my list too.
Because, sometimes they're fragile. And I mean, you can get foam bags, you can get tissue paper, depends on what's easiest to wrap your things. I mean, even clear, some not clear bags, but just some bags.
You can buy bubble wrap at the dollar store.
That's right. So, I mean, I think it just lets them know what you're selling them is important.
Yep.
Bigger pieces, sometimes it's a matter of they just throwing it out or offer to deliver. That's another connection that you can make. If you live here in town, I'm happy to bring it over. You can just leave it for now. You're probably traveling around. Those little things they really like.
Service. Did you say have a separate area for wrapping?
I didn't, but it's probably
It's
a good idea. Yeah. And that's where having a helper
Can
has
help.
come handy. Like, hey, could you wrap this up for so-and-so? And because you're busy doing something else, you don't need to be wrapping stuff.
It's another thing that shows your customer who just spent hundreds of dollars value that you think it's valuable too. So wrap it, protect it. It just enforces that.
And a lot of time, that's a good time to get them to add their name
Right.
to the invitation list. Like, hey, well, I'm doing this. Can I invite you to future shows? I do an invitation. I only do 6 shows a year, or and then I can just let you know when I'm having some. Oh, sure, they're always happy. Use the invitation. They will almost always say no to the mailing list.
Change your verbiage.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
One thing that I did for my open studio, because I was in that same issue with how am I gonna have time to pack things up, because and I think this is really important to remember, with the studio tour, your main focus is making connections with people. So do what you need to do in order to make that happen.
If
And
you're
so,
freed up.
yeah, so that means I knew that I probably had to have a packing station put together and somebody helping me with that. But then I had one of those light bulb moments where I was like, well, shoot, this is local. They probably live down the street. I could just stick a sticker on it if they're okay with it. And then, like Billie said, deliver it later. That way, the transaction's done, but I'm not bothered having to pack it up. They're not bothered about it either. And we take care of it.
And then you automatically get their mailing address, because you
Yeah.
have.
You have to
You
deliver it.
have to, you
Brilliant.
deliver it, you get in their home, you make that extra connection, just like Billie was saying. And so don't be afraid to do that, because that can really, especially if you don't have a lot of people helping you,
Right.
that's one thing that you won't have to do then. obviously some people, like, there's people that come up from Denver and, from Steamboat and from all over. And so you are gonna have to have some stuff ready, but yeah.
So I have a question on that then. It would help get, especially local customers, just kind of moving along and get them kind of off to the next person that's on the tour that they're gonna check out. Now, with the piece that was sold, do you think it's a better idea to leave it as sold on display or to set it aside? Would it generate more interest if it's sold and has some kind of a sticker on it saying, oh, hey, I know when I go in someplace and I see that something's already been sold, I'm like, oh, and it kind of increases my willingness to buy the next thing that I'm like,
It creates a sense of urgency,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
so.
And I think, I've done both. There are times.
Sometimes an empty spot is as enticing, but a sold sticker
Yeah.
keeps it on display.
Right. I'm pretty prolific, so sometimes I have extra artwork that I'm like, oh, good, now I can put this one
Yeah.
up instead.
And I do that.
And it's gonna be kind of, I think you're just gonna have to gauge it with the amount of inventory you have. But yeah, and I've noticed the same thing for myself. I remember I was at a studio tour back in PA, and there was a young emerging artist there, and there was like 3 pieces left in her booth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get one now, or I'm not gonna get one. And so it really does, it pushes people to make a decision. We're not gonna sit around if it's good work,
Right.
and they're
Oh,
kind
wait.
of connected to it. And they're certainly there.
And don't be afraid when people are really locked in and loving the piece. Don't be afraid to say, well, do you want me to wrap that up for you? Because, that's what they're there for. And people like to buy stuff. They do. They shop online, and so they're meeting you. So make that reach. And sometimes I'll say, do you have any special occasions coming up? Your birthday, anniversary, something that you can justify the purchase? Yeah, as a matter of fact.
So on the topic of purchasing, we've got a question from Elisa that's online. What are artists using in their studios to accept credit cards? Square credit card reader or another form?
Square.
I'll use Square or Venmo right now.
What?
I have those little QR codes for people to use to Venmo.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
and so I printed it out and I made it all pretty and done like if you.
So
just
that's a
have
great
Venmo.
option, Venmo for people too.
Yeah.
So who asked the question, Joan or Lisa?
Elisa.
So I would say whatever's easiest for you to use. Also, make sure, Billie touched on this earlier, but make sure you're practiced in it, because there's nothing worse than taking 15 minutes just to get it rung up while everybody's waiting. So whatever you use, make sure you're used to it.
Yeah, if you are using some technical stuff, prep it ahead of time.
Yes.
I had an issue at Steamboat this past year where I couldn't get my Square reader to connect with my phone. And this was all during a purchase, of course. And it was one of those things where I should have tested that ahead of time. And if I had done that, I would have known that with all the other readers around me, it couldn't find mine. That's what the problem was. But it took, oh my gosh, I was on the phone with Tim. I'm like, what am I gonna do?
There's a backup,
Yeah.
there is a backup to that, is you can do it by hand.
Exactly.
So you write down the credit card number and the expiration and the
Zip code.
the CVC and the zip code, those are the 5 things you need.
Mhm.
Because then you can ring any sale, even if your technology goes down.
Yes.
And I highly recommend knowing how to do that. And if anyone needs to know, you can call us, we'll tell you
That's
how.
that's the nice thing about having that receipt book
Right.
or something like that to
Have a
write that stuff
backup.
down. But because a couple of weeks ago, the internet was down in downtown. A lot of the merchants,
It's happening all the time now.
yeah, a lot of the merchants closed. I'm like, yeah, so I told my artist on duty, I'm like, okay, so if somebody wants to buy something, they have to use their card, do that.
Well, and especially at large vendor events in general, like even outside of the studio tour, I'm not sure how many artists you have together. So I've never actually gotten to see it in person, which is kind of cool. I'm gonna go this year. But I just think about, like, we were at Corn Roast recently with the chamber, and our credit card readers weren't actually live. They weren't connected to the internet because we knew there was gonna be several thousand people, each person with a cell phone, not to mention all of the vendors with a tablet and their own cell phones, all trying to connect to the internet, all trying to process. Yeah,
They're not
And-
quite ready to handle it yet.
yeah, and the networks just can't handle that. So especially if you're going to a really large vendor event, that's something to consider, is making sure that you have that option to take those online or offline payments.
And it's not actually a deal breaker to not have different forms of payment. One of my artists participated in the Fort Collins studio tour. She's 80. She didn't really have the technology to do it. So she just took cash and checks and did quite well. There's a lot of people of a certain age that come to the tour and they still have checkbooks. And they would leave and go get cash and bring it back to her because they wanted to make the purchase. So it's not an absolute deal breaker. It does make convenience, but there's a lot of fees that go involved with it. So you can get them to pay another way, do so.
Yeah, and sometimes clients will ask, what's the best way for me to pay you? Well,
Checks and cash.
yeah, checks and cash. I mean, if they're willing to do that, that, you know, saves you some fees. We have another question from Elisa about charging sales tax. What is the amount? So the sales tax amount is 6.7.
Depends on where you're at. Where's she at?
In Lovely.
Oh, are you
Let's
in
look her up.
Windsor?
We have the map right here.
She might be in
It
Windsor.
is on,
So you're in, so you're 6.7%. And you just run it like your regular business. So I'm assuming you pay business tax. You do need to charge tax. Everybody on the tour does get turned in to the city as a vendor for this event. So you do need to charge tax. And Elisa, if you have more questions on that, feel free to call me at the gallery. This is Jill. And we'll get you through that. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So in the last year and a half, my style changed quite a bit. And that's what I promote now on social media and everything, but I still have a lot of older work. And it's coating the walls of my studio. And it's some of them, I'm like, I think I'll paint it for that. But some I don't want to paint over, but I don't promote them much because it's an older style.
Use the word earlier works instead of older.
Yeah.
Yeah, one sounds like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff I'm ready to get rid of.
Yeah, so how do you best
That's
stage
some of the
that?
things I would either bin item or put in a different area that you're ready to discount. And again, some people say about discounts, it's a savings. So what we talked about this, what's the best way to say discount? Like, well, these have some savings because they are earlier works. That sounds nicer.
Yeah, then discounting.
Yes.
And clearance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're allowed to shop clearance for t-shirts,
Yeah.
but not for artwork,
Right.
okay?
My earlier work sold at a different price point than my current work. But the word earlier better than older.
I like that idea too. You can still, I wouldn't necessarily discount it right away. I mean, unless you really want to. But I think sometimes we think we have to discount right away in order to move things. But depending on how you stage it, depending on how you tell the story of
People may
it,
not
you
have
may
seen
not
it.
have to do that.
It's new to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be absolutely new to them, and the way you communicate about it, and also it may be like, depending on how you talk about it, it can be a little bit like, well why is this less? Like,
Okay, so that's a great question. What would you answer to that?
yeah,
I had a different price point when I was doing that work.
Okay.
I painted that a
experience.
few years ago, and I evolved my style and.
Yep. You need to have that ready.
yeah, to know what that is
Yeah.
instead, like, because as artists, a lot of times we go into, like I just said,
I don't
didn't know what I
like
was
it.
doing, and like that does not instill a sense of confidence
Right.
in the artist for the client. But But the idea of like grouping it and making it like a lovely, display, maybe separate from your other work. But the other thing I was gonna mention too is show them different ways to display artwork. People get really, really kind of, what's the term I'm looking for? They tend to think there's only one way to do things. Cause that's, yeah, they get stuck and they can't think of new ways to either display artwork or here's the age-old excuse, I have no wall space.
Yep.
Well, if you can show them some different ways to display artwork, maybe it's sitting on a shelf, maybe it's like just helping them that way, give them some ideas, especially if you're actually in your studio and it's a home. This is the prime location to be able to give them some really innovative
To have it
ideas.
on your wall above the fireplace where one should go, stuff like that
Yeah.
works too.
Yeah.
What I say when they say I don't have any more wall space, I just say, you're not hanging them close enough together.
Well, also understanding how to layer, like when you talked about the mantle, it doesn't have to be hung above the mantle, it can lean on the mantle and you can layer a couple different pieces. Yeah. And going back to your grouping idea.
Yep.
Oh, that all works together.
Right, if you show them how to do it,
And you can probably even go into some decorating sites and look at what they're doing and try some of that. They quite often have some great display ideas that I've never thought of.
One of the things that I did with my displays is I tried to focus on having the works almost talk to each other. So that idea of like, say for instance, if you're a figure painter, like having like the one that's on your far
Looking
right
at
side, like make sure that one's looking at the other work and it's not drawing your eye out to a dead space or whatever. But think about that and how the works all kind of work together and how they're talking to each other. And like with my landscapes, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll use color threads with them and group them that way. Because that usually people get really like, oh, these actually, like Joe was saying, they look really nice together. Well, that's an idea. But also like thinking about how like one path in one, kind of leads you to another one and kind of arranging in that fashion.
And just like she was talking about having that continuity again, and it may be just color continuity. All of these, I've got my reds and yellows, my warm fall colors in, and this is more my oceans or, rivers or whatever it is that's consistent, that they look good together. They don't have to be the same subject, but the palettes sometimes are different. It's just calming to the eye to see a grouping of stuff. And again, it gives them the idea, I'm like, oh, I could hang this and this and this together.
so some of the things we haven't talked about is signage.
Yeah,
So-
I think, that is huge.
Signage is huge, and the studio tour will put out a how-to on signage probably about a week before the tour. And if you need more yard signs, I have more. And I think a lot of people picked up posters at the reception, and so we'll make sure everybody has posters in your windows. I also, at our house, I do big banners. So I have a big banner that hangs from the roof all the way to the grass. It says, studio tour this weekend. And
You can use
it's
it year after year.
You use it it was cheap too, it was like $30.
Yeah.
And it's as tall as my whole house, and it is so visual. It's got the hand on it. We can send everybody the logos. In fact, I think we already have. And they're cheap, and it's really a visual impact for your neighbors. Say, oh, wait,
And I went to
Just not selling
one,
your
I went to
house?
one studio tour.
that's right.
I was looking for one, it was Amelia Caruso, and I found the directions and everything, but here's the street, she had it hanging this way. This way!
Yes.
I've
Yeah,
even
just
went
see- yeah.
and moved them around where I've seen them like the wrong,
Yeah,
I'll be like,
you gotta see
Look
them
at that.
coming and going. This doesn't, if you're driving by, so if you get those banners and you can put them out, do two-sided. Because any ways you can catch their attention. I did the banner too. And again, no dates this weekend, studio tour. And just a big catchy image, not something too terribly busy.
very simple.
Yeah, because remember, you gotta think about it like you're driving. And if you need to do a little bit of research, take some time, before you create your signs or whatever, and pay attention to what you pay attention to. Because remember, you're probably not a whole lot different than your customer base. So.
You have less than 20 seconds to catch their attention.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So little information,
We'll go
bold.
this
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah.
And if it's something you're planning using year after year, you don't want it to
Right.
lock you in with a specific period of your work by putting your images all over it.
Right.
Keeping it
Well, they're not gonna
Simple.
recognize
It's better.
your image.
exactly. They haven't seen it yet,
Right.
so.
I do my big chicken. He's still-
Well, he's been around for years.
He gets her attention.
And what are the best places that you've used to print some of that signage? Are there
All state banners.
All
is
state
one-
banners.
This is one that we've used, I think that giant one we got, and we've had it for 5 years, we paid $100 for it. Yeah. And it,
Is that online?
And they're
Banners
pretty
Are
quick.
Us is not bad too.
banners are us.
I've been looking at them. Mark Jones got one. And if you,
If you need a quick FedEx on 287.
on 28, yeah,
That's
Adam's
pretty
great to work with.
reasonable.
The other thing too is, you have to check ahead of time just to make sure their printer's up and running, but the library prints on campus as well.
That's what I was gonna say.
And so you can get there, that's $10 a linear foot, which is amazing. It's so good and it's high quality printing. So that's another option. You do need to put your own grommets in, but you can easily get that over at Walmart. They have a little set with an anvil and everything.
Excuse me, which one you talking about? Very good.
The-
For the prints.
The what?
The Loveland Library.
The Loveland Library.
The
Yeah.
library.
Yeah, and it's upstairs, right?
Yes, so just
Yeah.
walk upstairs to
You
create your
have your
space.
little thumb drive with your design on
Oh,
there.
so they can print, huh?
Mhm.
Yes,
Oh,
they
I didn't know.
can, and I think their maximum width is 43. I think that's right. Does that sound right? 43 inches. Yeah, so
That
I mean,
sounds about right.
yeah, so you can do like 40, and that's, I've been playing prices around with Banners R Us and the library to find out who I wanna work with getting the banner printed for shadow play. And, but yeah, so that's another option.
But when you're putting your signs out, if you're in a neighborhood, put them at every intersection that's pointing to your house and point it to your house in every direction. And
It's like if you're having a garage sale
And if
you're
you're,
trying to.
and look at where, look at where the traffic's coming from. Look if you can see the sign, don't put it behind a bush or something like that. Just look and see if a car's driving down the road, can they see the sign? So it's really important to direct people because some people are just gonna see the sign and like, oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I have people come to my open studio just because they saw signs, and I'm
Yeah.
like, who are you? Where'd you come from? I know, they're like, oh, I saw there was an art thing in there, saw the sign. Okay.
See if anybody on Zoom has questions.
You guys have any other questions? You guys are super quiet.
If you even want to unmute, you can talk to us too. We should be able to hear you.
Yeah. They are a small enough group for sure.
Yeah. We don't have too many competing voices.
We want to know if Melissa drew her wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. It looks like like a Jenny Milner kind of thing.
She's not telling.
She did.
Oh, so how about, so we've talked about putting the artwork together.
Talk about getting them in.
Talk about the signage to get them in there. What are the little things that the studios can do to kind of wow the socks off their visitors? Billie, can you?
I'll tell you, if you have if you're excited about a piece, that is very contagious. Like, oh, I can't wait to show you this new thing that I'm doing. And just show them and explain a little bit how you do it. You don't have to tell them the whole process. But that excitement is very contagious. Like, oh, I can't wait to show you. I've taken things off the wall at the gallery, like, check this out. They get excited when you're excited.
Yeah, so have that type of enthusiasm of, I'm throwing a party and I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
You know, like that, and that might be challenging for some, but it's still kind of. How about though, like other aspects other than the artwork? Like they're coming into your space. Yeah, oh, so here, for instance, Melissa says, what about food?
I make that the minimum. Since COVID, I do water bottles, and a lot of times we do packaged food.
Yep.
So we'll have packages of popcorn or
Water is very important. A lot of people are walking, so
the water bottles are
water.
good. I don't really do a full-on buffet.
Also, I recommend you have a restroom available, clean, toilet paper.
Yeah, and make it so that they know where to go.
Right.
For that. Oh, and here's another thing, put artwork in your bathroom.
Yep.
Because it sells when it's in your bathroom. I'm telling you.
Captive audience.
Yeah, they have to sit there and look at it.
You have to look at this piece. I worked with a gallery owner one time and he just swore it's like, I mostly just sell the work right out of the bathroom. That's what sells. That's weird, dude, but music?
Yeah,
Maybe some light music playing in the background? Not too
Yeah, you don't want them to feel odd. You know, you want them to feel comfortable and welcome and I do recommend if you have dogs to have them contained.
Yeah.
Because not a lot of people like dogs, so
It's a distraction.
Yeah.
Anything that could be a real distraction, you don't really want it.
Especially if your dog is really cute, because if they're looking at
Right.
your cute dog, they're not looking at your art.
That's right.
Unless you have a great painting of your cute dog.
And you can put them right next to each other and say, look.
They're behaved and stuff like that, it's okay. It's not for
I mentioned that I do pet portraits.
Yeah.
That's something you like to do.
think about lighting too.
Yeah,
Lighting's
lighting's a
really
good one.
important. Make sure that you're not putting your prize pieces in the dark hallway, okay?
Yeah.
You know, just really consider how the lighting is working in your space. And I was thinking, I think for Chris and I with shadow play, lighting is a little bit more of an issue for us because their lights are a little bit more subdued. So I think what I'm gonna do is I have some extra lamps that I can put up on my pro panels. So I'm gonna use that. And
I
I
have
think
more of those too.
And they have they have ceiling ones as well where they will change the
Yes.
direction for
Yes.
us when
Yes.
we're there.
And take the time, if you've got that kind of set up in your own studio, take that time to light it correctly, because I mean that could be the difference about how someone's engaging with that work. So lighting is critical. What was the other thing? Make sure it smells nice. For instance, we have a cat, and his area downstairs was getting kind of rank. So before the studio, we just made sure that was all cleaned up and just make sure that like Billie was saying, there's nothing distracting in it. That's gonna take away from their experience of your artwork and you.
Do you have a little area for little kid?
For kids?
A little.
Yeah, these guys do.
Yeah, so when I did my open studio at my house, we had my 7-year-old put a tent up, and we had activities for the kids to do. And I think Chris and I, Chris is gonna have different things to do with the kids, like paint kits.
I have different kits that I can bring, as well as last year I did something and it went really well, so I might do, and it's just something that I give the kids so that the adults can look around. The adults can do it too. I had actually a lot of adults participate and do my art activity. And they loved it, so that worked for.
And keep in mind, sometimes the sales happen after they've met you. If you teach, That's your opportunity to let people know that you're teaching. Oh, you teach? Yes, would you like to sign up when I do classes? You know, I can contact you when I'm putting together a class. They like that. Oh, you do pet portraits? Yeah, let's swap emails, or even better if you can get a cell phone number. You can text them. It's like, hey, it was great meeting you, because people don't usually ignore those. I mean, I won't wear people out with them, but just like, remember to send me a picture of your cat or dog or whatever it is. And I recently had that, the guy showed me a picture of his cat, like, oh, can I paint that? And it wasn't a commission at all. It was just a great picture of his cat. And I'm like, would you send that to me? He's like, yeah, sure. So he texted me, and I got his number. And then I painted it, and I like, hey, I wanted to show you how it's coming out. It wasn't a commission. And he goes, oh, that's coming out great. Let us know when it's finished. And so again, I didn't really follow through. I thought, he's quiet. So, but anyways, he reached out to me again about a week later. Did you finish it yet? Because we're interested. I'm like, sure, it's finished now. So I finished it and sent it. And he goes, yeah. So they came in and bought it. And it wasn't really a commission. It was just something that I was inspired to paint. I wouldn't, if it was an ugly picture, I wouldn't have said, yeah, send me that. But, you know.
Yeah, and what Billy's talking about there is just that connection. You know, taking that time to talk and make those connections with people and find that way to start a relationship, basically, is what you're doing with all of that.
And I think that's probably the biggest thing for me, is why people buy from you or somebody else, is they made that connection, and they tell the stories of the person they bought this painting from, or this artwork from, and you know, they like the story. They like to tell their friends the story. They're friends with this artist now.
Oh, here's another good point with accessibility for studios. Just make sure that there's not like tripping hazards, and
If they are, mark them.
if there's tripping hazards, mark them. For instance, you know, like a lot of us have like maybe a side gate that can go in, and that's a wonderful way to kind of create like a traffic flow and everything. But make sure that, you know, the stones aren't super hard to walk on. You know what I mean? Like just kind of think through those things too.
It's a liability. And
Yeah.
I do recommend talking to your insurance guy. You're inviting people to do business. It's not expensive, but it's something to really be thinking about.
Yeah, and with COVID concerns and everything, like one of the things that I did for my open studio is I shut the air conditioning off, and I just kept the front door open, and I kept the back, you know, glass door open, so that, and we had our house fan on and everything, so then it was constantly moving air, and that really helped create clean airflow. And I had masks there for people if they wanted them. I don't know where we're gonna be at with the studio tour. But just, you know, helping people feel comfortable, like maybe have some available, you know, if they want to wear a mask, they'll probably have one. But that, you know, that's one of the things that we did too, just made sure everything was clean, and
We never know what the weather's gonna be like, so.
that's true, yeah.
We had one artist set up outside in a small tent, and we had gale force winds. And, you know, I think it blew her to sleep. It was Aaron Leeper.
Yeah, I remember we had our door open initially at where we're at, and we had to close it because it was gonna take the glass door off.
And we've had beautiful days and we've had snowy days, so you gotta have a
Man.
Yeah, have a plan B, because it's Colorado, right?
Yeah.
Another good plan is if it does snow, make sure you go and knock off your signs.
Well, and have some extra nice, warm, cozy things.
Yeah,
Maybe
have
some
hot
extra
cider or
cozy
something
smells.
like that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, we
encourage
serve-
people to stay warm and look at your
We serve
artwork.
hot cider.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Perfect. Or lemonade, depending on, you know, Colorado.
Yeah, it depends on the We don't know yet.
Maybe one way and one the next day.
Exactly.
Just don't have the hot lemonade.
Ew, yeah.
So just don't have hot lemonade.
It's also probably a good idea that if you're doing demos to not get totally engrossed in your demo. Remember, people are there to talk to you. So if you're just painting and not talking to anybody, you know, they feel, yeah, exactly. They can sneak out,
I
so.
can't do it.
Well, one of the things, I was actually talking with another artist, who, she said, she had a whole bunch of questions about doing something like what we're doing here, with the open studio, and she was curious about like the demoing during a party and everything. I was thinking
It's
about,
hard.
like, yeah, I don't know if you'd really wanna do that, and then I thought, well, what if you made it part of the entertainment? What if, you know, from say 6 to 7, you basically advertise, I will be live painting from this time to this time. That way you have a set time you're doing it, you've got people anticipating that, and then you're not, you know, pulled back and forth, you know, between, you know, like, oh, maybe we should demo, but there's a set time for it. So that's something that we talked about, between Diane and I about, you know, well, maybe that could be a decent solution.
And if you have a helper,
That's what I was gonna
It's
say, if you
awesome.
have a helper that can
Then you
still
can.
assist while you're doing that.
Right.
Exactly, yeah,
Right.
but make sure your helper knows what they're doing. Like, make
Right,
sure, like, if
they
if
can use your credit card.
make sure they know
yeah.
how to package in the way you want it packaged. Make sure that they know how to run the credit card stuff, that they understand how to get sales tax, all that kind of stuff. Just never assume that they know how to do that, and they might, but it might not be the way you want it done.
Right. Yeah, and practice ahead of time.
And if you're doing a live demo and you've got it planned out like that, there's even an opportunity to use that as a storytelling kind of
Yeah.
opportunity about what your process is and why you do things a certain way, why you chose certain colors or imagery or media that you're using in your piece. So you could use that as an extra opportunity to start up some conversations.
That's what I did last year. It worked really well. And I worked with a friend of mine who's a pianist. And we've done improv, painting and piano together. And she actually wrote some pieces. She plays improvisationally, but getting ready for the tour, she exercised in what does the color purple sound like? And so when she, you know, even when she would see me pick up purple off of my palette, her music would change. And so we advertised it as just these short sessions, and that brought in groups of people each time. We did 2 a day.
And I have some of the things that I do when I demo is I do things with simple shapes. So I can show them how I would do a cat or a vase or an apple or some things like that, or a person just using simple shape, and they love the basicness of that. They're like, I had no idea.
I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives them
That's
a,
right.
yeah.
So it's steps. Because they always say, you know, I can't paint a straight line. I'm like, well, an expert at anything was once a beginner. And, you know, it's like anything else, learning a piano, learning an instrument, playing sports. You know, it's good in the beginning, you get better as you go. So encourage people to do art, and especially if you teach.
Yeah, remember that the studio tour, like, a big component of it is education. Like, if people, like, if they just wanna come and like buy your artwork, they could come any other time. But like, they're most of the people that are coming for this also are curious about your processes and everything. So, yeah.
It's kind of nice that when you were saying something about your earlier works, we did a show a couple of years ago called Now and Then. And we had artwork, some of us had artwork from when we were a kid.
Oh, that's
And so even if you have some like that, it's like,
Oh my
this is what I
gosh.
did. And
Yeah,
so,
this is
and then
high
we
school.
had a progression of over the years what that looked like. We had more families bring their kids and grandkids in because the kids are interested in art. They get discouraged because they see these polished paintings and other artwork. And yeah, but this is what I did when I was your age.
That's good.
Yeah.
And so it's, you know, it's kind of fun to have some of that, especially if somebody comes with a younger child. And again, adults like to see the process too.
One other thing I thought of as we were talking, parking. Do you have any thoughts on that, Billie?
You know, I think people are just, I don't think they all come at once. I think they kind of meander in. We tried to do shuttle service once, that didn't work out. Were you part of it? No, that didn't work out.
Like, I'm just kind of thinking of, like, people that don't have, like Chris and I will be downtown, so we'll expect everyone to either use street parking, the various public parking lots, or the garage. Everyone knows how to do that. But if you're at your own studio location, they may need a little bit of help of, knowing either where to park, or you
If
might,
it's not obvious.
if it's
I
not
think it's
super
similar
obvious.
to having a garage sale. People kind of figure that out.
Yeah.
They're not gonna stay that long. They
Mhm.
come and go. They're not gonna park in front of other people's driveway. And so when I had it at my home studio, I didn't have any problems with that.
Mhm.
Most people had problems just finding my street because it's not a through street all the way down.
Right, so then the signage issue is kind of
Right.
what solves that.
Yeah.
Signage is huge, huge.
One of the things we did for my open studio thing is we moved our vehicles out of our driveway. So like we moved them down the street because we knew we weren't gonna need them, and then we gave really easy
Yeah.
access.
Or put them in the garage.
Most people
Have you
won't
seen our
park in their
garage?
driveway.
It's a mess.
But it could be a place to do the studio if we need an expanded space.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
where everything went, so that you can open.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That in my master
Sorry.
bedroom.
That's another, if you have a lot of work and you don't want to go into other areas of your house, if you have panels, put them up in your, put your lights up and stuff like that. So like, well, I'm a very prolific painter, and so I want to make sure you have an opportunity. Yeah. But I think that practicing ahead of time and getting it up ahead of time, getting some of those before shots.
Well, and it's great to use those before shots, and after shots for social media also.
Yeah.
Yeah, get them pushed out there.
Do you take picture for your painting in the process, like in the beginning?
I do,
Video?
yeah, I do quite often, and a lot of times, there used to be a way, Franklin and I were talking about it, where you could do a slideshow, so where it would take, start painting, next step, next step, next step, and it would just kind of melt one into the other until the finished painting. I can't figure out how to do it anymore.
We need to make an appointment with Frank.
Yeah, he said,
I can show you.
he said, I mean, I used to do it, so
Yeah.
they just
I do
changed.
it.
Huh?
I do it on my Mac.
Okay,
Yeah, I
Do
wonder
you
what
show
program you
them
have to use.
but I mean, I'm talking on Facebook.
Oh,
There
we
used
should
to
be able to
a
do it
Right
on
on
Facebook,
Facebook?
yeah.
Yeah, they used to.
Oh,
be a
no,
way-
I just make the video on my Mac.
Yeah.
I will make it. So when you in the studio tours, you show this to people? And you're saying the process you have like.
I haven't in the past, but it's probably a good idea.
Yeah, I mean,
So you show some like pencil sketching or.
Yeah, I might show the sketch and then the first step of the painting, and if you take a photograph of each step, they can kind of see it kind of come
You
together.
can print out though.
You can just print those out and then put them up on a bulletin board or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah,
So are you a new artist in town? I don't.
I just moved to Full Colin 2 years ago before COVID, then we just like it at home.
so they're having a studio tour too, but you're probably too late to get into it.
Yeah, I just go to that small business,
yeah, uh-huh.
yeah, and see the information here. I'm pending, yeah, so I'm in a graphic design and web design, so I.
We all need you.
Yeah, I know,
Be
that's
a popular.
Yeah, the painting is really my passion to continue to do.
What kind of things do you paint?
I can landscape or something more decorate, not very realistic.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know.
And what's your medium?
Acrylic more.
Acrylic,
More
okay.
yeah, more like that. Yeah, I still teaching kids. I come from Phoenix, so when I was in Phoenix, I have my art studio.
Uh-huh.
Sitting.
The Fort Collins is doing their tour earlier.
I was just trying to think of when it is.
I think it's in
It's the
September.
weekend
I think-
after ours.
Mm,
That's what they
In
said.
October?
Yeah,
Sure it's
the
not the weekend
23rd.
before
I
ours?
think it was before it, yeah.
I don't have it on my calendar, I don't think.
But I encourage people to go to other studio tours too.
Yeah.
So you can get ideas from them.
Yeah.
What
Get on
you
it.
like and don't like.
We can't tour around when we're in it.
Yeah, I was
Right.
thinking if you open it, we can
October
Yeah,
23rd.
I'd love that, yeah.
Nice to-
Yeah, but we can.
Google told me
connect
it's
with
true.
people.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be glad. Jill and I both. Here's the QR code. You can take you right to our website.
So I think we've covered quite a bit right now. I think it'd be a really good idea so that we can engage our friends that are online. I would like to hear what everyone has learned tonight that they're maybe going to
Melissa,
change.
just put it up there.
Oh, hey, the deadline for applying for the Fort Collins studio tour is September 15th. So you still have an opportunity if you would like to get in.
2 days.
2 days if you'd like to get in. And it's October 23rd and 24th,
October
yeah.
9th, 10th.
That's
And
ours.
October 6th.
that's ours.
For the Fort Collins
That's
one.
our. We're
Oh,
talking
oh,
Fort Collins one.
It didn't show full color.
No, that's it. We'll write
Fort
that down.
Collins is separate.
Oh, separate.
We'll write that down
Yeah.
for you.
Okay, so this is lovely.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the Loveland. So that's our tour that we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, you're there. Perfect. Oh, so the QR code works.
Yeah, we're perfect.
I know. I check them all.
I check
every
single thing I get.
Oh, we got one. that
Oh,
I
oh.
checked once.
I'm gonna have two.
Yeah.
And October.
Well,
Okay.
there's just one.
So let's see if we can get Melissa, since we can see you, I'm gonna call on you first if you'll unmute yourself and tell us one of the ideas that you heard that you really think you're gonna utilize tonight for your studio tour.
Lots of things. Making getting the postcard made to hand out to people with an image of my artwork. I need to do that this week, probably. I like the idea of, I think it was like when you were talking about doing it on Facebook, but I was thinking I have always taken process pictures of my artwork. So having a slideshow maybe of that on my TV just going, because I don't really have videos of my process, but I could just have slides of the different paintings. And I do change my paintings a lot, so people are always surprised at how they end up. I thought it was really important, the idea of having a helper. I had not considered having someone specific to be there with me, because my husband will be here, but maybe even having another person besides that who's there. So and then an idea I've had that I'm thinking about is last year I did a 100-day challenge, and I have 80 5x7 small works. And so we have a place in our dining room where we have photos clipped to a string thing on our wall. And so I was thinking about putting up those 5x7 artworks on that and putting a number on the back of each one, and each household could do a spinner or something to win one of those little works of art when they came in. What do you think about that?
I think any type of giveaway to draw people in, if you communicate about that ahead of time and say, hey, you have to come in order to be able to participate in this, that can be really exciting for people.
Hey, Melissa, I'd recommend doing the video on that, showing your husband spin it and you win, and so people get what's happening and get that out for.
Okay.
The other thing I was going to mention, Melissa, as far as a helper, if you can find someone that knows your work well, and can speak to people about it, or they just in general love your work, that's really handy. Like when I picked the people that were helping me, I made sure that they had some kind of sense of what I did, so that if I was busy, they could actually kind of step in for me.
And the best salesperson is always going to be someone who's enthusiastic and supportive of your work. So,
Right. I do have an artist friend who I keep trying to get to be part of the studio tour. So maybe if she was my helper, then she would do the studio tour next year.
Right, that's another great idea. That's a great idea.
Yep.
What do you suggest for compensating?
ooh.
That's completely up to you. Like I've
I'm asking, what do you,
so in the past, I've actually paid an hourly wage that's agreed upon. For the time that I
Piece of
did,
artwork would be a good
you
idea.
could do a piece of artwork. One of the things I did for my caterer is I gave her a pretty nice discount. She really wants one of my paintings. She wants to do a commission, and I'm like, because you did such a wonderful, because you're helping me with this, here's what I want to do for you. So we did it that way. And what I did for my my party helpers on Friday night is they got to drink as much wine as they wanted to.
You can also do little gift bags.
Yeah, you can
Gift
totally do
bags
little
are
gift bags.
popular.
And then each of my helpers got to take home one of my favors. I ended up doing little favors for each of the people that attended. So it was something free for them to take home. You don't have to do that, and there's lots of different things you can give out for free that is of value. But that's one of the ways that I do gifts, for them. But there's tons of ways you can do it.
Awesome. Let's see. Can we get Joan? Joan, can you maybe unmute and tell us what you're thinking about doing? Oh, and we can see your
Oh, we
beautiful
get to
face.
see you.
Yep. So I like the idea of the grouping of things together. I thought that was good. And then I hadn't thought about music, but like my son plays the ukulele, and that might be fun to have him come for a little session and keep people hanging around if you have music. The sales tax, I'm glad to know how much to charge. And I had a question about pricing. What's average prices of what are people in Loveland asking? I know it's varies, but
Do you have any recommendations
I
on
don't.
pricing your work?
Honestly, I maybe say unframe works for less, just because you don't have your framing involved. Also to be able to offer works if they don't like the frame, to sell it unframed. But it's all over the map. It's kind of like how much is a car? It just depends on the car. So.
Well, and Joan, you already have your work priced, correct? Like through Lincoln Gallery?
No, I'm not in Lincoln Gallery, but I already have prices that I have been using. So I just didn't know if I should adjust for Loveland, or if it's probably the same as what I would ask in Longmont, right?
Yeah,
You're not that far away.
Yeah. I wouldn't adjust.
No, if
Stick
you were
with the
in
prices
New
you
York,
have.
it'd be different.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So yeah, thanks for sharing all your thoughts, and I'm looking forward to the tour.
Oh, I have a quick question though.
Oh,
That we haven't talked about.
Let's get Elisa, right?
okay. I was gonna say, let's get Elisa. If you can unmute, and if you'll show us your face, that'd be awesome. But if not, just share with us, some of the things that you'll do now with the studio tour.
I'd love to hop on, but I literally didn't wash my hair today. I don't want to scare everybody. So
Okay.
But I could show you my Labrador. He's pretty dang cute. So he's hanging out, sleeping at my feet. I just appreciate everybody sharing their information and obviously the having something to send people out the door with so they can remember who you are and where you are. I thought that was really important. I like the idea of displaying things in different ways. I have some little 8x8s that I'm gonna, put in frames that could just sit on a coffee table, things like that. The signage is going to be very important. Where I'm at, I'm kind of tucked in if people aren't familiar with that older area where those studios are. So I know that that's kind of been an issue in the past. And I just appreciate this group and everybody's support and knowledge. I think you're all wonderful. So.
And Elise, did you get some extra signage? Because you're down there on that 12th Street, down there by
Yeah.
Patty Andre's studio, right? Did we talk about that?
Yeah, I grabbed 4, but I might swing by and grab a couple more because I think Billie pointed out, one on Railroad coming from that direction as well. And, there's a couple entrances into that studio area. And so I might come by the gallery and grab 2 more.
Yeah, I have them at the gallery, so we're open noon to 6.
Okay.
Fantastic. So let's see, do we want to do your question first, or do we want to jump in and let everyone else share what they're going to implement from all of this?
I can hold on to the question. I'll remember it.
Okay.
Okay.
Why don't we go around the room
Okay.
in person here? And I'm going to twist this just a little bit. Let's see. Well,
You got everybody.
okay. So let's just start going around the room.
Start with Amelia.
Amelia.
Okay.
What's something new you're going to do this year?
So here's what I'm gonna do now. This is new for me. I'd been at Verboten before, and previously I'd been at 4th Street. And I always noticed like a couple days beforehand that everyone was talking about the Friday preview parties and like stuff with Night on the Town. And I'm like, dang it, I never would remember in enough time. So that's something that I'm gonna add. Chris and I are going to be showing together, and we're going to add that this year. We're going to do a preview party on Friday evening, and it's my birthday the next day, so we're going to make it a birthday party. So there's going to be cake, okay? So if you guys want to come and eat cake with me, it'd be great. So like that's
If I'm done setting up.
yeah, that's one of the things. We're going to make it fun. We're going to have that added additional night where people can actually see things. So I think that'll be.
And Joan and Candace, you two both, you need to check with Artworks and see if they're going to be open for Night on the Town. Because if they're open, Friday night would be a good preview.
Yeah,
There's
good.
big crowds down there, so.
Okay.
Oh, me, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, hi, I'm Chris Gravel, and something new I'm gonna do this year, I'm gonna get myself a helper.
Yay!
I cannot do
It really
everything.
does help. It really does help.
Yeah. That's my main thing, and do a preview thing.
So something that I'm gonna do new this year, and this will be privy to those who are here on this meeting, is we're gonna be doing live Facebook from your studios. So we will actually come to your studios and do live Facebook throughout the 2 weekends of the tour. So that hasn't been announced to the entire tour yet, so you guys will be first on the list. And if I can only get to the 6 of you, that's how that's what's But we kind of did it last year, so this year I think we're gonna make a big plan to do that, because I do think that's important also.
Well, maybe I should do the same thing with the LBC's social media and
Yeah,
go around.
if you're just live,
Why not?
it's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah,
It's huge.
that's how you get around the algorithm and don't have to pay for all that exposure.
Right.
Facebook loves anything that's happening live, and any interaction you can get as quickly as you can get it.
So you go live and we'll hook to you.
Well, and what you do is you get all of the artists who you're actually interacting with and stuff, get them to go on and like when they're not on camera, you know, as you're going around from one to the other. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4 you're doing. So you're doing 1, and then 2, 3, and 4 are interacting with it. And then you go over to 2, and then everyone starts, and that just helps boost and increase that reach.
And you can have the helpers.
You can have the helpers do that too, yeah. Say, hey, make sure you're doing this real quick, because that's gonna boost everyone's reach on it, and that's gonna be organic. It's not gonna, you're not gonna have to pay for it, and it's gonna utilize everyone's contacts, and then everyone who's interacting with it, their contacts are all gonna see the studio tour too. So if you do that the first weekend, that's gonna be like the most effective you can probably do it. Let's see if we can coordinate times. And
Okay, we'll talk.
yeah, we'll figure that out.
Well, what I'm gonna be doing new is the studio tour.
First time.
All of this is new and I'm very excited and we'll see what it all goes. I think one of the, I had already been thinking about doing something that would be interactive, that it would be a piece at the end of the week, the 2 weekends of everybody that showed up. So creating a piece by all the participants, I mean, all the patrons that come in, so see how that works out. Yeah,
That's a great idea.
So I'm Lisa Dubois, and this is my 3rd year on the tour, but the first time at my house. So that's new, and so I'm going to do a video loop on my TV, and I am going to make an invitation list and get actual physical addresses. And yeah, I have one banner that's just my Lisa Dubois art banner, but I'm gonna get another banner that's studio tour banner, because I live on a corner. So, and our street is one of the busier ones in the neighborhood, so I have lots of visibility.
You could get one of those people that twirl the sign.
I never thought of that before.
Lucas would love that.
I need Lucas.
Yes, give him something that's
I'm
colorful.
colorful.
He'll
And then
Attach
I'll
some
send,
streamers to it.
we'll send my son the hat on.
Do some trays.
Some hours. So we'll just like, yeah,
I'll put him to work.
they have enough energy for that.
So all the kids that come to my studio tour get to go outside and spin the sign.
You know they love it.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna do. I've been doing it all for so long. This will be my 13th studio tour.
Wow.
Yeah, I started the studio tour 13 years ago, and we had about, I don't know, 25, 30 artists that we met at a restaurant in downtown. Hey, should we do this? You know, I think we had the meeting in March, and we decided we did it. And a lot of the artists were more involved at the time, so we had a very successful first year studio tour on about $4,000. But the artists were more involved because we didn't have a budget. They had to invite, they had to do more to promote the tour. And that is the number one thing that gets people to the studio tour. You guys taking the time to invite people to come. Everyone you know. Just invite them. Ask them to come. Make new friends.
Yeah, yeah, that's new for me.
You'll have to be in the studio
Make
tour
new next year. friends. And then we crochet together. And then I visit your art studio. And to see what's that look like. And
You get to come to ours before.
yeah, I mean, look at your art, our works and look at our studios. That's great. That's nice.
So we have our first patron.
Yeah. Very exciting.
So are there any those closing thoughts, questions, anything that's come up as you guys are all sharing, you know, what you're doing the first? I know you had a question you're sitting on. What do you got for us, Amelia?
So one thing we haven't talked about is signs for each of the paintings. Does anyone have any?
Pricing them.
Like,
Title cards.
yeah,
Title
title cards, like, what are you guys doing for that? Like, are you gonna do like clear labels? Are you gonna do little paper tags? Is everyone gonna look the same? Like,
We
what's
do
happening?
have little tent tags.
Okay.
We're potters,
Yeah.
and so ours are 3D anyway. So
Uh-huh.
I do like little table tent tags with what it is, what it's made of, and how much it is.
I have mine with my logo and it's all set with my website and everything.
Okay.
And I just use those.
So you have like almost like a branded sign
I
that
do.
you can use.
Yeah.
Because you just wanna make sure like, you're gonna have artwork up that there's,
Make sure it's priced, because otherwise
They
they're-
don't wanna ask.
they don't want to ask, and a lot of times they won't ask.
Uh-huh.
So
Oh, I certainly don't.
I always think if it's not priced, I can't afford it.
That's what I think too.
It's like a menu with no prices on it. Be careful.
Yeah. Well, and like, especially like for, like, I know Lisa is gonna be in her home, well, Jill's gonna be in her home too. If there's if things are priced, then people are gonna assume, well, that must be part of your private art collection.
Right.
Yeah, and I was trying to decide, like, do I take all my private stuff down? Or like, how do I mix the
I
sales stuff
wouldn't.
with the private?
I wouldn't take it down, simply because I think it's really important that patrons also see you're a collector. And you can talk about the piece, like, this is why I, love this piece or whatever, but yeah, you do have to kind of, I had that same issue trying to figure that out. And, Tim kept telling me, like, it's gonna be so confusing for them. I'm like, not, this is my art collection and I wanna show people it, so.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that people like to see a little bit of artists, their personal.
Yeah.
Prefer.
Makes them feel
Yeah.
like
Where
they
did
know
you go?
Yeah.
Where did you like to travel? What things you like to connect it? What's the reason you want to see a little bit about yourself?
Right.
So the people buy art, not just buy artworks, it's still very interesting about artists themselves.
Right, it's like your family pictures.
I think 80% of my art in my studio is from other artists.
I was just gonna say that. Mine's more like 99%.
That's because you don't do Walmart yourself.
Well, that's true. That's true. I have to buy it from you guys.
Well, and something that was interesting that I think Franklin mentioned in our session 2 weeks ago is, when it comes to those little, what are they called, title tags? Or he suggested maybe even as a conversation starter to put how many hours you put into the piece. Not just the price, the media, your name as the artist, the name of the piece, but maybe how many hours it took you to create, especially if it's an exceptional amount of hours. Like, people want to know that.
My best work has been in the least amount of time.
Yeah, that works, I think, for some
Yeah,
artists,
you
for
got some
others, that
artists
could be
that
totally
do
like,
that.
Some of mine is
That's
live
true.
art, it's done in 45 minutes.
Right. And in that case, what you do is you put down the
Live
amount of
art.
years
Right.
that you've
Yeah,
actually
45
practiced
minutes,
this.
That's
Plus
that
50
type of,
years.
that type of
2
technique.
decades.
Yeah, because the dresses I used to make, when I started making them, they took me close to 60 hours, but by the time I was done making them after 10 years, doing dozens and dozens of them, I got it down to about 20 hours.
Right.
So.
They've got to know what it takes.
Yeah.
I have another quick question, if possible. I've been doing a lot of murals and things like that. How would you guys possibly display wanting to show some of those that I've done
I would do it on a video.
on the video?
I'd have them videoed
Okay.
and then run it on a computer or your television or iPad or anything, really. You can have pictures of them.
Well, sure,
Yeah.
you could totally
You
just
can have a
have
whole
like
wall of pictures.
like some foam
Depends on how
core.
big they are. Like yours, you would have to video because you gotta go down the hall.
It's a mess to try to get pictures of. But yeah, like I think anyways.
And if that's something you want to do more of, it's a good way to promote it because nobody's going to know. I had the guy that they're painting over the mural over there on Fifth Street. He asked me, he's like, do you do murals? I'm like, well, I have, but most of them been inside. Would you do it? And he wanted on that wall. Remember that face was last year?
Mhm.
From the, I'm like,
Oh, the one they painted over.
I'm like, no. I don't, but I got to
That's
say,
a hard
remember,
wall, it's really bumpy.
it's really bumpy.
Yeah, I
There's
wouldn't
not enough
do
money,
anything.
sorry.
No.
But it would be a good idea to have signage up maybe that says, I also do murals.
Yeah.
Ask.
Even if you just put one picture with you in front of a mural, I'm like, interested in a mural?
Yep, otherwise they don't know.
Another thing to put up too, which I've done at different festivals, and you do this at any of your studio locations, is if you have like a laminated piece of press that, you know, is about you.
Ribbons are great.
Ribbons are great, any type of magazine articles, newspaper articles.
Printed material.
Yeah, if you have like, if you were able to do something on video, like with an interview, having that loop, like any of that type of stuff helps build that credibility, and shows you as more of an expert in what you're doing, because you are an expert in what you're doing.
And just like the mural sign, if you do pet portraits,
And
Put a
classes.
or classes, put a picture of that dog that you painted. Here's the reference photo, here's the painting. Custom pet portraits, otherwise they think you just painted the dog.
Right.
You have to really tell them that you're doing this. Oh, you work from pictures, yeah, well, the dog can sit still that long.
I did just do a little 8x10, 8.5 by 11 thing for this past weekend for some of the gifts that I've been doing, little paintings turning into other products and stuff like that, and I got 3 in one stuff. So that was decent.
Right,
That's a lot.
That is a lot. So,
But yeah, to let them know what you do, because you may not have it on display right then.
The other thing I'd mention too is October is a really good time to start talking about holidays. And like I know for me, I tend to, this year I'm not gonna do it as much, but like I'll start promoting, like, hey, if you want a commission for Christmas, ask now. You know, like that kind of thing, like letting
Also
people
gift
know.
certificates.
Yeah, gift certificates. I have like normally with at my location, I'll have a list of here's what I'm doing in the next like 2 months. And people will take postcards, you know, for that type of thing. So letting them know what's coming, like especially holiday related. It gets them thinking, you know, instead of like, last minute, and then they're calling you like in the middle of November going, well, can I have that permission? No.
Remember studio tour?
You do a custom piece for somebody. Yeah. And, you know, with Amelia's work, hers, because she has the layers, and you've done things, you kind of give them some ideas, like, oh, if you're into biking or hiking, I can do a piece, and that it really gets their wheels turning, so you almost have to help them think of things, and then put it out there. Do you have any special occasions, any birthdays, anniversaries, you know, or a wedding gift for somebody? Those are the kind of things, give them the ideas where they would make these big purchases.
Remind them of the link for next week.
What's
Yes.
next week? You mean
The 2 weeks.
It's in 2 weeks. Yeah, and we have, actually, so we just put the link out. It should be,
I just got it, great.
right, so that'll be on the website, whenever.
I think she comes back tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, so that'll be on the website, for our last training, which will all be about customer engagement. So we're basically gonna be fleshing out a lot more of the stuff that we've started to talk about tonight. It starts with staging and making your environment something that's welcoming to your customers, but then you have to open your mouth. And, you know, the stuff that, you know, stuff comes out of there, right? And so.
A lot of artists have a hard time with that part.
It's so hard.
opposite. She went,
Yeah, yeah, and it's something that artists, it gets them every time, and so we want to do our best to help you with that.
we might even break out and do some faux conversations and
Oh.
things like that.
There will be
Because-
role playing.
Like that's how you get better and how you get
You
smooth at
gotta
it.
say it.
If you can do it in a really awkward environment like this, then it'll be a lot easier when you have your art in front of you and you're talking about something that you're passionate about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had my business coach had me do a role play over like for a commission consult. And she was a complete booger. She's like asking me all these really hard questions and stuff, and I'm like, she's like, let me just stop you right there. And so I mean, the only way you get better is by doing it.
And we're a good group to do it with, so.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
all been there.
Absolutely.
It'll be a lot of fun.
For sure. So yeah, that link is up, and
I'll
we'll be
email
up
it
on
to
the-
everybody too, so you can have it both ways.
Yeah, for sure, and I'll put it on our private Facebook group. I was gonna mention, we are building our own Loveland Art Studio Tour mailing list, invitation list.
Invitation.
Let me change it. It's an invitation list. But
Wait,
so
what does it say on the top of the paper?
mailing list. I'm sorry. But this is just something so that we can be able to communicate with patrons and artists, whether you're showing or whether you're just interested in knowing what we're doing, and maybe you'll decide to do it later, that's fine. But it gives us the ability to be able to stay in communication throughout the year, as opposed to, like Kat said, trusting algorithms to get the word out to everyone. So, because before you know it, studio tour stuff starts happening, and we want to make sure that everyone knows what they need before it's the last minute. So there's the private Facebook group. There's a QR code there you can scan to get to the private Facebook group, and then I can approve whoever joins that. And then on the other side of that, if you want to take a flyer, is the date for the last training, with our website on there, so that you can have that as a reminder, stick it on your fridge.
Can we put it up, can we share screen with the QR code for these guys?
I was gonna say, or can you put the link in the chat?
Yeah, something, so, because none of those guys are on it.
Yeah, let me send that over via chat. Hold on. Not a problem.
Yeah, and I have trouble navigating from all the way over here.
You guys also use Nextdoor app for invitations as it's coming closer. Because these are people already in our
Yeah,
community.
next door, yeah.
I'm Billie, Colson.
Let's see.
Oh.
Okay, so there's the group that should come up.
And
I don't have a block, I got the whole.
Oh, because it's yours.
Except for this one, and one room you
Oh,
don't
really?
figure out.
Yeah, I'd come
So
over.
we could play.
Okay. And for those people that are joining us online, I'm gonna dump in a couple of links here. Sorry, I can't type very easily. This first one is for the live event, if you would like to join us in person. And then the next one will be if you want to register for the webinar version. And you'll notice they're just one number off between the webinar and the live version. There we go. Okay, so are we just about finished up, everyone? Have we answered questions and everything? I mean, we have until 8:30 if we still have other things that you guys want to address. Any other burning questions that we need to address either online or in person? Okay, fantastic. Well, it's wonderful to see all of you, and thank you so much for all of your time and sharing your knowledge and your experiences on the tour, especially for the people who are new or have never experienced it. So. Awesome. I'm going to stop the recording now. Good night. Figure out how to stop it.
No.